Hey everyone, you're listening to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast, the place to come if you just want some good old-fashioned talk about movies. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, VS Movie Podcast. You can just go to the website, vsmoviepodcast.com. We're on Google Podcasts, we're on Apple News, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify. Basically, you can find us pretty much anywhere you want to listen to us. We appreciate you listening. If you want to throw us a like, follow us on any of those outlets, and share us with your friends. We'd really appreciate it. And don't forget, if the best thing you can say about a movie is that it is visually stunning, then the filmmakers have done something dreadfully wrong. Now, let's get on with the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm Mark, that's Ryan. Hi Ryan.
Hey guys.
This may be our last big movie review of 2018. Appropriately so. It's probably the biggest in terms of budget and or hype coming into this pre-Christmas weekend.
Sure.
That movie is, of course, Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa. DC, DC, they've got that Batman and them Supermans and them Justice Leagues, but then they have Wonder Woman. So, but now we have Aquaman. Yeah, Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Willem Dafoe, who's always great. Patrick Wilson, Nicole Kidman, Dolph Lundgren, also always great. Aquaman, this is post-Justice League.
About a year, I believe they said.
Yeah, something like that. So Arthur Curry's half-brother is played by Patrick Wilson, King Orm. He is trying to unite the remaining kingdoms of the seas to wage war on the surface world because we suck.
Yeah.
We also get the Aquaman. So this is like an origin story and
Sort of.
an actual film.
Yes.
So it's all his origin stuff really is told in flashbacks and narrative overlays, which I don't really care for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Nicole Kidman is his mom, Queen Atlanta.
Because she washed ashore.
Because she washed ashore at the lighthouse, where she was rescued by Django Fett.
Yes.
Tamura Morrison, previously played Django Fett.
Django Fett, yeah.
And so this is Amber Heard convincing Jason Momoa to go.
And Amber Heard's character is Mara, who is a princess of Atlantis.
Daughter of Dolph Lundgren.
Yes.
Who is the king of one of the kings of the undersea. Yeah. I love it. What the overlord of the sea or whatever. That's what King Orm wants to be.
Yeah, because he wants to rule over all of them.
Yes.
Because right now they're kind of separate, and there's four? Was it 4 or 5?
They're
separate.
Yeah, there were 7. A couple died out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the mythology's kind of cool, just in a general sense.
But he wants to bring everyone together so he can rule over everyone, and to do that, he is going to fight the dirty humans who are above land, above sea on the land, who have wasted the world, and there's the environmental part of it.
They don't hammer that home at all.
It's not, and it's not. I mean, it's not really ever explained how aware of this, does humanity only know Aquaman because of, what he did with Justice League and has become like he's like a social media myth.
Yeah. It's kind of the way that I read him in this, because they're always and then the one guy that's trying to tell the truth up on land, of course, he's a crackpot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so I'm not, so it's kind of a weird thing in that you have the leader of this underwater community who is saying that they have to go and kill the Earthlings or the humans or above, I don't know what, anyway, but we've got to go kill them because they're going to ruin us. But it seems fairly clear that the people don't know they're down there. So this attack is going to kind of come out of nowhere, which doesn't exactly work in the context of the way the story's set up.
No, and like even the warning shot where they these huge tsunamis like on every coast. It's almost like you go back to the abyss the director's cut with the big
Yeah.
wave with the aliens
Yeah.
underwater, but humanity just thinks that's weird.
It's like yeah, what's going on?
And of course the question is, where's Superman? But anyway,
where's anybody? Because I mean, and that's part of the problem when you make the films that are, the fate of the world is in the hands of Aquaman. Well, where are his friends that were just there a year ago
to help him save the world? Yeah, that he helped save the world.
And we see this in. I mean, Marvel had a couple instances where this sort of thing happened, but I think they kind of pulled away and figured out we need to make these disastrous events isolated enough that it would make sense that only one or maybe two superheroes would show up to it, because the other ones have other responsibilities because things are happening all around the world.
Yeah.
Whereas this film couldn't care less about any of that.
No, they went big. So Arthur Curry, Jason Momoa, is he has to go and recover the trident of the old king, the original king, because then he can be taken seriously as the bastard son and fight his brother for control. So you get this adventure movie.
But here's what's kind of interesting about that too is, yes, he's the bastard son, but he's the bastard son of the queen, not he's not a blood relative of the king,
right? Who she had to go back and marry, and then mother Patrick Wilson's King Orm. Yes. So
it's kind of that step removed, because he's not a child of the king.
No,
he's the child of the queen who ran away and
before the
hide. And
So it's just there's some. You gotta love royalty in their lines of succession. But so there's the adventure movie where he and Mira are trying to globetrot and follow the clues to find where the king had hidden the trident. So you get a little national treasure in there.
Yeah, you get the Italy, you get the Sahara, you get...
but then there's this clue leads to another clue, which leads to another clue. There's a lot of cool looking stuff in here. The one thing I really, really hated, I hated Atlantis. I didn't mind a lot of the other stuff, but Atlantis, I felt like I was watching Tron Legacy.
Well, I think there are a couple of times where they did okay with it. I think when they're first going into the city, and it's a very Blade Runner-esque moment where you have, heavy synth keyboards going and the lights reflecting off of the vehicle that they're in. That part worked for me, but in general, you're not wrong. It doesn't look like they did much to update it from what we saw in Star Wars. The first Star Wars.
Prequel. And that was also one of the ones I was thinking about. And I saw it in 3D. And so I finally figured out what the problem with 3D is. Like halfway through this movie, I figured out why I don't really like it. And it's because until they can make the depth more gradual instead of stepped, it's always going to look fake and cheesy.
Well, they can. The problem is that it takes a lot of time to do that.
Yeah, it's not ready for prime time, so to speak.
Well, I mean, it's because they're lazy. How to Train Your Dragon, the first film, they spent an extra couple months just working on the 3D in that film, and at the time that was like the second or third 3D film to come out, and it did really well and really was quite well done, because they put a huge amount of time into making sure that when they did that certain aspects of the 3D was less in certain places and more in others, and when they transitioned between the two, that it wasn't jarring. I mean, the problem is that studios didn't want to take the time. They slapped 3D onto a lot of things early on that weren't supposed to be 3D. 3D has essentially died in America, but it still makes money in Europe. But it doesn't make enough money for them to really care to get it perfect. It just makes enough money for them that they can slap the effect on, maybe mess with the depth a little bit, but not really give it the fine tuning that it needs.
And maybe they need to stop with it. And before anyone bitches and complains, it's like, why did he go see it in 3D if he bitches about 3D all the time? Because the showing that I needed to go to, the time it was 3D. It's the only reason I fucking went in 3D, people.
And I did not see it in 3D. I saw it on IMAX.
See, IMAX 2D probably would have been a lot more visually impressive to me.
Yeah, but it still felt, there's two things. A, they're underwater, and B, it's all green screen.
Yes.
So there's almost like two layers of fake, because again, we're smart enough to know that they didn't shoot that it's made to look like it's underwater.
Right.
And you can kind of pull that off if that's all you're trying to pull off. But when you stick these giant statues and all these massive things behind them, to me, it really felt very animated. Rather than, I realize it's live action, but it felt like actors placed into a very overly animated world, which kind of takes away some of the grandeur. One of the cool things and why I think a film like Blade Runner worked and stands up the way it does is because they had to do all that, or at least most of that, physically. A lot of the early Star Wars stuff, they shot with actual props and toys and things that were real, and I think that we've gotten to the point where, well, we can just make this in computers. We don't even need to, we don't need to make statues in the foreground or whatever real. We'll just add that all later. And I think that as good as the technology is, our minds aren't fooled by a lot of that.
No, and this kind of goes back to when we talked about Spider-Man and we talked about animation. There's just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should do something. You shouldn't automatically go right to the most current and advanced thing. Sometimes you need to step back and maybe do things more practically and augment with CGI. The last episode I put up of what the fuck was that was my little rant about the animation and how it wasn't going to change animation in films, because there are films and I wound up talking about this with some other folks at work. The film that was going to change the way we made movies, and it kind of did, was Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, where everything but the actors and anything they physically interacted was going to be fake. But other than that, that was it. It was actors on a green screen, and everything else would be put in digitally. Now, there are still movies where we wind up doing that. Lucas embraced that idea a lot.
Yeah, I think what we need to know with Sky Captain, though, was that he was also doing a style. It wasn't trying to be ultra modern. It was trying to be ultra retro in its style, a throwback to an era that.
In the visual style, yes.
Yeah,
but the technical way he shot the film was that way. And that's what everyone was going gaga over.
But he shot a film that was meant to look like the old silent era films. So he didn't have to make it look absolutely realistic. He needed to make it look like an old time film, So I think yes, it was. I like the film quite a bit, but the animation that he was doing wasn't meant to be ultra realistic. It was more meant to take you back to this different era of the old serials and all these things. It's in black and white, and if it looks a little hokey, well, films of the 50s and 40s of sci-fi and going back, they had that look. Whereas this film obviously wants to make you think that this world, this underwater empire exists, but when there's no weight to it and it's just pretty lights and things, I think that it never really feels like a place that you could actually visit.
Right. And the only equivalent I can have, again, and you were right earlier, the The biggest thing was it was underwater, quote unquote. So that you're right, they had to make it look like it was underwater, and then they added 3D, but all of it's CGI. If you go back, slightly different genre. If you go back to The Hunt for Red October, all of the underwater scenes, there's no water, but all of the subs are actual models. Yeah. So they mixed the two, and it always kind of felt real enough. You know what I mean? In that film. And that was a while ago. They weren't using the computers necessarily, but like, again, I think it's the application of the technology needs to be more thought out. Don't just go gee whiz bang because you can, but just because you could build this ridiculously intricate CGI underwater kingdom doesn't mean you necessarily have to build it all and try to show it all at once. You can have sets, like actual sets that you can deal with, and so it that kind of detracted from the movie, because it did wind up looking fake a lot, as fake as a fictional underwater kingdom can look.
Well, and particularly when you end up in Italy, and Italy, they're actually shooting in Italy, and you get the real, it changed. That those are real buildings. That those are real people. I mean, there's some visual cues and things in that it actually was a little jarring, in the sense that it felt like we walked into a different movie for a little while. The color, everything changed. The lighting changed, obviously, because it's above water and whatnot. But I also don't know why did we have to go to Italy? Why did we have to? There was a lot of hoops that were jumped through that felt like, well, it can't be easy. Okay, well, that's fine. It doesn't have to be easy. But if you're going to make it hard, it probably should be a lot harder than all that they had to do. It seemed like a lot of busy work, and it was not really heroic stuff.
No. And okay, so you're right. So let's, at the end of that, and then how does he actually get the trident? He has a therapy session with the big sea monster.
Yeah.
And then he gets the trident. It's like, I was like, really? Seriously? That's what it was. It's like, as soon why do you think you're worthy? I'm like, I know where this is going. And,
I don't.
I basically had that all written in my head for that. It's like, but that was like, that's how it ends. That's how that particular quest ends, is with a therapy session with the big giant sea monster. And then of course he gets to fight his brother again.
Because that's what they do. I don't want to spoil the thing. I almost kind of teased it earlier, but now if I tease it, people will know where he finds it, and who is also with the trident is a thing. Sure.
And so, that comes back, and I'm like, DC has an issue.
And there's aspects of that doesn't exactly work either. There are elements of what's been going on in the time in between and things that just don't quite hold water for me.
Yeah, I mean,
so to speak.
It's and Momoa's performance is all over the map. He's completely, frat bro-tastic, and then he's brooding introspective, and then he's laughably flirtatious with Mira. And then he's back to bro-tastic again. And it's just, it's not consistent. It's not dark, which is nice. I mean, this is not Zack Snyder dark, which is a nice change of pace for DC.
I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that with Zack Snyder,
he was an EP on this.
With Zack Snyder, he was making decisions, and I think a lot of people would say that he was making the wrong decisions, but there was some sort of uniformity to things. Granted, people hated the uniformity that existed, and that is problematic. But I think ultimately for me, my problem with Aquaman isn't that it's a bad movie. It's just that it's so entirely predictable, and that it feels... I mean, we saw a similar film in Black Panther.
Yeah.
But the two films feel like they're on radically different planes. One feels smart, and one just kind of feels, and for a 2.5 hour film, either not enough happens, or they spend too much time setting up a sequel that doesn't look all that interesting.
Yeah, because I don't know that I need to see Aquaman 2.
No, because I mean I don't want to go into too much on it, but the story that's set up for the second film, which is really, to me, it's like what it's like you saw something one time and it wasn't that good, but they want to show you to again.
Yeah.
In the hopes that it will be better the second time, sort of situation. Whereas it's like you're gonna have to put a lot of work into that to make that work for me, because it was too easy in this one.
Yeah, and that character, he was a throwaway, which also kind of sucks. For as much as they kind of put him in there, he just kind of
why.
Well, yeah, and then of course the mid-credit scene, and there's only one. If you haven't seen the film, there's one scene mid-credit. That's it. Once you see it, you can go. And again, entirely predictable.
Yeah,
you knew what that scene was going to be. So,
and those at times this film does get hokey. There's some. I mean, even. Marvel has some silly things here and there, but I don't know that this kind of even misses the mark a little bit in that respect. In that, again, I go back to Iron Man was filled with comedic stuff, but it never felt too pulpy or comic-y, or I don't know what. And I guess for me, I think the DC universe has yet to figure out. They went dark. People didn't like that. So they're still trying to figure out what they're doing. And it just feels like they really just don't have a direction, and there's no one standing over trying to even out the wrinkles and whatnot. I didn't hate the movie, but it did nothing for me. Like I know there are a lot of people who really like it, who have said it's the best DC film yet, but I just don't feel like that they really even tried to do anything with it more than just regurgitate a story that's been told.
Yeah,
and not just in Aquaman's origins, but in a lot of different origins. I felt like there were some characters that got more screen time simply based on the fact of who was playing them, not because the story warranted it, but because they had to justify paying that person, or they needed to have them in more because they're this name or that name, or it feels, and again, disconnected from, even though there is a little connection to Justice League, mostly it's disconnected. And I know that James Wan, who directed it and co-wrote the story, that was one thing that he wanted. But at some point, DC's got to tie all these things together or start over.
Yeah. Well, thankfully they do have Flashpoint. When I came out of the film, I don't know that. Yeah, if people are saying it's the best DC film, I'm like, maybe the second best. It's arguably better than Justice League, but it's not as good as Wonder Woman. But I came out of the theater and I texted you, and all I said was, "Well, I don't think it sucked."
Yeah,
and it's like that's probably the best review I can give. I don't think it sucked. It's not great. Like I said, it's not better than Wonder Woman. And it's depending on how well you either liked or disliked Justice League. It's arguably better than Justice League. And let me just say real quick, this is my aside. Thank you, Warner Brothers, for not saying this film had to be 2 hours long, like they did with freaking Justice League. Because I would hope that they learned something from saying 2 hours. That's it. Make the movie you need to make, and it's going to be as long as it is long. I mean, unless you're trying to put out a 4-hour movie, but it's almost 2.5 hours long, and that's fine if that's the film you wanted to make. Now we can argue about the film, but I hated the fact that Justice League was hell or high water 2 hours. And it's like you've hamstrung your film at that point. Much as I hated when Batman versus Superman was being filmed, and they said it's PG-13, but don't worry, we're also filming the R version for home release. And I'm like, well, you've just told me that you're releasing the movie you don't want to make. Why are you even bothering that? That's my side rant. Thank you, Warner Brothers, for not saying 2 hours, letting them make the movie they wanted. We can argue about that movie. Not your decision to limit that movie out of the gate. So I don't think it sucked. Aquaman, I don't think it sucked. That's where I'm at. It's like a 7, maybe 6.5, 7.
See, and I think it's a 5.
Oh, you're just right down the middle.
But I just it felt like it didn't feel like anyone's heart was in it as much as it needed to be. I didn't. It just felt like, pure sugar and no substance, and I just,
yeah, I mean, you could argue.
I'm tired of that.
You could argue that this film is exactly like the meme that had been going around of the poster where they changed all the words, where it said Aquaman. What's our movie about? Who cares? Here's a wet Jason Momoa.
Yeah,
you can almost go, well, that's pretty accurate.
Well, but here's the thing. I think that I do think that Aquaman can be an interesting character. I don't think that it's innate that his character be silly or and they don't play this as silly, obviously, although he does have some silly moments. But I think that there's a better film even in this film than the one that they put out. Something that's tighter, that doesn't feel so cliched.
Yeah.
Because there's so many cliches and so many tropes in this, and I realize we're dealing with characters that were created during an era where these tropes were not necessarily as common as they are now, or every superhero origin story kind of was the same thing for a while there. I just wanted something more than what I got. And when I say more, I don't mean longer. I just mean more from the time
more
that
substantive.
I spent with it. Yeah, I think part of the problem is James Wan has done some films that I really, really do like, and I think that are very interesting. I think the one thing I said when I walked out of the theater that I still hold on to is I think DC needs to go smaller, because I think they keep trying to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just gets to the point where it just feels ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I think people liked about the Christopher Nolan Batman films was the fact that there was still a reality. It felt like it was grounded in something. And I thought Man of Steel felt grounded in something. Love it or hate it, it felt grounded in something. But I think subsequently, most of the films have kind of not felt as grounded. And, not to say that Marvel's films have all been grounded in something, but they're doing a better job of making their worlds connect. They're doing a better job of getting tone in different tones in different films and then bringing them together. Where DC just seems to be throwing things out, and because they were already planned, and we have to just keep this train going. Yeah. So I this to me, it's not the worst DC film, but it might be the most disappointing, because for me, it just wasn't trying to do anything beyond tell a kind of a story we've seen done better a few times already.
100%, really, 100% agree. It just wasn't all of that, or a bag of chips. It almost feels like Star Trek Beyond, where it's just so far removed from Star Trek on almost every front. In Aquaman, just yes, it's got Aquaman in it, but they mention Steppenwolf from Justice League. But even that timeline and his interaction with Mira doesn't quite work. So they're just off. You're right. They're just kind of off on where these things are slotting and how they're slotting together. And maybe they need to not build a universe. Maybe they should just make standalones. Maybe they should literally just make standalones. I don't know. I honestly think they'd probably get a better product if they worried about the film that was in front of them instead of the film that's 3 films in front of them.
And that, you know, I think this film does suffer from the fact that it's already looking forward to Aquaman 2, because it is. I mean, there's no denying it, and I think that a lot of there's a lot of time in this film that's spent on things that aren't important to this film. And I'm not saying that you can't set things up. I think you could have gone with a couple of scenes that at the beginning and then let it sleep and bring up that story later. Yeah. You don't have to, you know, try to weave that through this storyline, because it doesn't benefit the movie. In fact, and like I said, I think it actually hurts the film in the sense that you don't care what comes next, because it just doesn't seem all that exciting, because it wasn't that exciting the first time. So why should it be exciting the second time?
Yeah.
But you know, but there are people that are putting this in their top 10s. There are people glowing raves about it. So if you're interested, I'm not going to tell you not to go see it, and not that you would listen to me anyway. But I was really disappointed, I think, with how safe it was, and maybe that's what people want, but that's not what I want from cinema. I don't want to see the same movie over and over again, because I don't have the option of not going. I kind of have to see this. And actually, I think the best comparison is the Transformer films, in the sense that it just got to the point where I grew up a Transformers fan, but I dreaded having to go see a Transformers movie, because by the third film, it was clear what that was going to be. I mean, it didn't make me hate my childhood, or, you know, make me hate my memories of what Transformers were, but it became a chore, and these films should not feel that way. We should be, you know, this. It's not like Aquaman has already done 7 films. No. This is seemingly new ground that we can at least be diving into, and it when it doesn't feel any different than anything else, to me, that's a problem.
Yep, concur. There you have it, Aquaman. Ryan's a 5.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Middle of the road. Said I might have been. I was being generous at a 7, but yeah, I'm 6.5. Like I said, there's some cool stuff, but man, it's just those Legos are not slotting together.
Well, I mean, for me, and when I'm 15 minutes into your movie and I'm starting to, my head is like, okay, how could we have gotten here faster? How could we have had that information given to us in 2 minutes rather than 15 minutes? Or how could we, I mean, let's just get to the, you know, moving here. And throughout Aquaman, I was rewriting it in my head. Cut this, you know, I mean, the movie costs what, like $170 million to make?
Probably.
And there are elements in there that a quick, simple, and actually more sensible rewrite would have cut 30 to 50 million off of that film, and the film wouldn't have sacrificed anything. In fact, it probably would have gained just by not having the space for these plot holes and nonsensical things. And you know, I think people talk too much in this movie, which is funny, because I've been talking too much during this review. But I think they say way too much in this film, and I think if they said half as much, we'd still get the message, and it would be a better movie.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to disagree with you on that either. But yeah, so that's it. That's all we're going to talk about Aquaman. So sorry, people.
It's going to make a lot of money.
It's going to make a lot of money. It's going to win the weekend. And now I'm convinced that Bumblebee should win the weekend.
It won't. But
no, it won't.
And Warner Brothers is going to call this a success. It's going to end up making at least $700 to $800 million worldwide. There you go.
Wow. Whatever. Whatever. We've talked about that phenomenon before. Dollars is not quality. So that's it. So that's probably the last big movie of the year that we're going to talk about. I've got a couple small ones I'll post, but this might be the last big one. So if it is, please enjoy your Christmas. Please enjoy your New Year's. Please celebrate safely. And we will see you again in January. Till then, I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you then.
And we will catch you in the new year. Bye-bye.